Yes, what's good everybody? Welcome back to Chat Sports TV. I am your host, Nick Dais, at The Lamb Show on all social media outlets. Today, we have some news, rumors, and a mini preview for the New York Giants at home against the Buffalo Bills. Before we get started, make sure you have subscribed to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. Let's get right in and start at the top with the quarterback, Eli Manning. Eli Manning, the 38-year-old, against the Dallas Cowboys in Week 1, pretty much did what he does all the time. Threw for about 300 yards, 306 to be exact, but a lot of that is misleading. Most of those yards came in garbage time, where the Dallas Cowboys were playing a lot of prevent defense and kind of letting Eli do what he always does. Of the 44 passes Eli Manning attempted, 33 of them came within 10 yards down the field or less. The moral of the story is this: Eli Manning is afraid to pull the trigger and let it rip downfield. It might be that his arm is not as strong as it once used to be, and he does not throw the ball downfield. It makes it a lot easier for defenses to key in on guys like Saquon Barkley out the backfield and Evan Engram at tight end. And also, the New York Giants offense is built for these sluggo and slant route concepts, that West Coast offense kind of run and gun style that they used to have back with the Niners back in the 80s. This is what the Eli Manning and the Giants have for them right now. And some things have not changed for Eli Manning. He still refuses to throw the ball downfield. It's been something that we've been harping on every single time we do a video of the New York Giants. It's why I think it is only a matter of time, and if Week 1 was a preview, we got to see Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones came in for relief in the fourth quarter for one Eli Manning in garbage time. Look, he completed some passes, and then he ultimately fumbled. I get that. But what was very interesting was the fact that they even went to Daniel Jones in that situation. That tells me, as a consumer of the product and someone that knows the New York Giants fairly well, there is a short leash. That leash has gotten even shorter for Eli Manning. We are tired of watching 3rd and 8s being thrown 2 yards past the line of scrimmage and hoping your playmakers make a play. I understand your playmakers are playmakers for that reason, but if you are not giving them better positions to make plays and be playmakers, ultimately that's going to be your demise. I think the one thing that led to Daniel Jones' fumble is that he has issues holding the football. He does like to run and get going, and he's a lot more mobile than what Eli Manning, the carcass of Eli Manning, has shown in the past. Him coming in relief means one thing: it is almost Daniel Jones season. And when that happens, I think a lot is going to change for the New York Giants offense. Number one, I think more players are going to be getting involved. Number two, it's going to open up the playbook to throw passes deep downfield. They just picked up TJ Jones again, who they cut at the 53-man roster to come in for Martin, the defensive player for the Giants that got sent to IR. So when that happens, when Daniel Jones steps in, and I want you guys to weigh in the comments below, how soon before Daniel Jones steps in? The next 3 games for the New York Giants is their season. And I know it's still early in the season, but look at what they got. They got Buffalo at home in the home opener. They got at Tampa Bay, and they got the Washington Redskins coming in Week 4. Realistically, if all goes well, the Giants can be looking at a 3-1 record after the first month of the regular season. And you would sign up for that if you were a New York Giants fan. The one guy that does need to step up for the New York Giants, actually I shouldn't say needs to step up, because he stepped up last week. Monster opening game, 11 catches for 116 yards and a touchdown for the former first-round pick for the New York Giants, Mr. Evan Engram, the tight end. Lived up to the hype in his first billing with the New York Giants in 2019. We were talking about how the only guy Eli Manning is really comfortable with, because at the time we knew Golden Tate was not going to play, but we didn't know the status of one Sterling Shepard going into Week 1. Sterling Shepard ended up playing. Sterling Shepard left with a concussion. His status is up in the air for the game with Buffalo. So what does that mean? Evan Engram is going to need to ball out once again. He's going to need to have 10+ catches, a touchdown, and over 100 yards. He needs to be that home run threat for the New York Giants. This is a guy who ran 4.40 at the combine when he was coming out. He must step up in the absence of these 2 #1 receivers for the New York Giants. Golden Tate and Sterling Shepard, I think, are a carbon copy of one another. And the way the Giants want to run their offense, I think a lot of the slant routes, the underneath stuff, bubble screens, is what you're going to be seeing when those guys come back. But for the time being, Evan Engram is that new hybrid, new breed of tight end, the Travis Kelce, Zach Ertz's of the world, that you could split out wide as an extra wide receiver while still lining him up to block. Pro Football Focus said he ranked top 10 among all tight ends with run blocking this week. And that was very impressive for a guy who's really gets knocked for his pass blocking and run blocking ability. So I think Evan Engram emerging for the New York Giants and continuing to take the next steps forward to be one of those premier top 3, top 5 tight ends is what the New York Giants are going to need. Another thing the New York Giants are going to need is me dropping the nickname Toast from one DeAndre Baker, the first round pick for the New York Giants, who traded back into the first round to get him out of Georgia, did not look good in his opening debut for the New York Giants. He missed a lot of time, if you guys remember, in the preseason because he had that injury scare where we thought he might have tore his ACL. You never wanted to see that for any guy, especially a young guy that needs to get the reps. He was on the sidelines while Corey Ballentine stepped in his absence in the preseason. But what ended up happening? You saw a lot of mental errors. These are errors that you can only make when you are not out there in game speed, in game shape, like DeAndre Baker wasn't. Dak Prescott, 14 of 14 when targeting wide receivers that DeAndre Baker was guarding. We cannot have that. Pro Football Focus gave him a 29.6 rating in his debut, way below league average amongst the cornerback position. He needs to step up because it is the biggest weakness, I think, on this New York Giants defense. Who is the corner opposite of Janoris Jenkins? Janoris Jenkins played well once again. Janoris Jenkins has been one of the better signings the New York Giants have made in recent memory. But he had that monster 2016 and he kind of tailed off a little bit, but he is still a top premier corner in the NFL. With 7 new starters on the defense, I think cornerback is the most important. Weigh in the comments below. Opposite of Janoris Jenkins, what is and who should be the corner opposite of Janoris Jenkins, and what other positions do you guys have some concerns about for the New York Giants defense? I understand we don't really have a pass rush right now, but Dexter Lawrence did pretty well against the run, and also linebackers are still up in the air, which is always the case when you're looking at the New York Giants. 7 new starters, folks. That's going to take time for all these guys to get implemented into the system and for us to be happy with what we see. All right, let's move on over to week 2. We got a mini preview for the game against the Buffalo Bills. Shout out to the Buffalo Bills coming back against the New York Jets. Back-to-back weeks in MetLife Stadium to open up 2019 for the Buffalo Bills. The Giants are a 1.5-point underdog at home using mybookie.ag. The total is 43.5. The Giants, a couple of tidbits, betting tidbits for you. The Giants are 5-0 in their last 5 games following an against the spread loss. The Giants are 1-6-1 ATS in their last 8 home games. What does that tell us? They are not, and they have not been, a good home team. Hopefully that changes this week because your boy is going to be at the game for the home opener. The Bills are 5-1 ATS in their last 6 games on field turf. You might be laughing, but playing conditions does a lot for teams. Some teams play better on AstroTurf, field turf, grass. It all depends. So it's something very, very intriguing, especially when you see dome teams. Now, Buffalo's not a dome team, but dome teams, when they go outdoors, sometimes they do tend to be a little slower than they are on the turf in their dome. And the Bills are 4-1 against the spread in the last 5 games following a straight-up win. So Buffalo ends up playing well after winning. There's not a letdown spot with the Buffalo Bills, as we see there. As we get into this mini preview, the most important player for the New York Giants, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, and you're going to be hearing this going forward, Saquon Barkley. Saquon Barkley against the Buffalo Bills run defense. Per Pro Football Focus, makes me proud to say the New York Giants, yes, the New York Giants, were the #1 team in run blocking in week 1. That is amazing. The fact that the New York Giants offensive line has been #1 for anything besides being laughed at for being the worst, this is promising, and this is exactly what the Giants need to do. They need to run the ball with Saquon Barkley. They need to get the ball in Saquon Barkley's hands. If you watched the Monday Night Football game, you saw how the Saints were utilizing Alvin Kamara. That's exactly what the Giants have to do with Saquon Barkley. They shied away from Saquon Barkley on many, many occasions. There was a 3rd-and-1 situation where they ran it with the fullback, and then the very next play, they rolled Eli Manning out. Eli Manning is as slow as someone with 2 torn ACLs. This is not what you should be doing when you have a guy like Saquon Barkley, one of the premier, I think the premier back in the National Football League. 11 carries for 120 yards against the Dallas Cowboys. He absolutely torched them. That's about close to 11 yards per carry, folks. He was doing whatever he wanted against them, and then they seemed to shy away from him. Look, I understand the nature of the beast with the running back position, but you need to run these guys into the ground. What happens is you get these premier backs like Ezekiel Elliott, like Saquon Barkley, like Alvin Kamara. You need to feed them the ball. There is no reason why Saquon Barkley should not be he should not have less than 20 touches in any football game this year, and we've already seen that. Next up, the most important player that the New York Giants have to defend in this game against the Buffalo Bills is one John Brown. John Brown, marquee matchup against this New York Giants secondary who, if Janoris Jenkins is on them, will feel confident. But it does seem like they like to maneuver John Brown a lot. On average, over 33% of the time, he landed and ran routes from a different position on the field, whether it was slot on the right side, slot on the left, outside right, outside left. So this is a guy that they like to move around. The Bills' offense is a pass funnel offense. What that means is that Josh Allen, about 52% of his attempts were going either to Cole Beasley or to John Brown. So you know exactly where the ball's going to go on this offense. They spent big money on these two wide receivers to bring them in town to help the evolution of one Josh Allen. And the Giants need to keep their eye on where John Brown is at all times. You saw him get behind the corner against the New York Jets, ultimately won them the game. John Brown had 7 for 123 and a touchdown against the New York Jets last week. And I don't know how much better the Giants secondary is than the Jets. Now, I understand the Jets have a lot more issues in their secondary, in particular at the cornerback position. The Giants at least have Janoris Jenkins. But what happens if DeAndre Baker, a.k.a. Toast, lines up in front of John Brown? What's going to happen there? It is the most important matchup, I think, for the New York Giants going into this game. Last but not least, we need the entire Giants defense, segueing off them defending John Brown, to step up. Got torched by Dak Prescott and the Dallas offense, over 490 total yards, and they actually kept Ezekiel Elliott contained. Zeke did not have a typical Zeke Elliott game. They keyed on him, but it was no point. There was no point to get Zeke going when Dak Prescott was able to do whatever he wanted. In particular, 14 of 14 when targeting DeAndre Baker. So if that's going to be the case, the New York Giants are going to have to roll coverage. We're going to need to get Jabril Peppers more involved in pass coverage, because we're going to need a lot of help there for DeAndre Baker until he gets his feet wet. With 7 new starters on this defense, it is very important for this Giants defense to step up. And last but not least, as we pull up the list graphic like we mentioned, please, Giants, let's not fall in an 0-2 hole again. It seems like the last couple of years, the Giants are always 0-2, and then you got to dig out of that. And it's very, very difficult for the Giants to do that. Could potentially be 3-1 if all goes well. Like we mentioned, home game against Buffalo on Sunday, then they go to Tampa Bay, and then they got Washington at home by the end of September. So if the Giants are 0-2, how much longer do we go with Eli Manning? We need to turn the reins over to Daniel Jones. I think it's going to re-energize the entire offensive players on this team, because they know that Eli Manning cannot get the ball downfield. So how much longer if the Giants lose on Sunday, which I predict the Giants are going to win on Sunday. I do think they're going to defend home turf. The Giants are a much better play when they are an underdog. If you want to bet the Giants this week, I highly recommend it. The New York Giants, when they play as an underdog at home, 67% against the spread. So in essence, should win this game because it's a 1.5 point line. Weigh in, how much longer if the Giants lose on Sunday do we stay with Eli Manning at the helm? We need to see what Daniel Jones is made of. We just have to. We like what we saw in the preseason, and with all these quarterbacks coming out next year, we need to see if Daniel Jones is our guy. With that being said, I'm at The Lamb Show on all social media outlets. Make sure you like this video, drop some comments below in the video, and most importantly, you subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv.